GEMPIRE is a game by Paul Elpers, and he's going to take some time to teach us how to play this upcoming Kickstarter game today on Legendary Tactics. So we are joined here today by Paul Elpers, the designer of GEMPIRE, and his friend Nick. Flash is also dialed in, and we are going to learn how to play this interesting looking game that is coming to Kickstarter in a few months. Take it away, Paul.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, and I'm excited to get this underway. Now, to touch on the theme again, King Zarmund is choosing a new capital city for the GEMPIRE, and so he's calling all of his lead architects of the GEMPIRE into a contest to see who can build his capital. And so depending on the colors of the books around the table that we're playing as, me playing over here as the black book on the left, Nick's playing on the top as the green book. Randy, you're playing as the blue book in the bottom right, and Nate, you're playing as the red book. Yeah. And so depending on what color we're playing as, that's the city that we're trying to build as the GEMPIRE, as the capital of the GEMPIRE. So I'm trying to do Yadok's Toll. We've got Caberthay in the game, Jalarnam, and Iriton or Ireton. I think that's probably going to become a controversy at some point.
Well, you're the designer, so you get to decide.
This is the official pronunciation, and it is said.
It was originally Ireton. And then I had this voiceover person who I commissioned who, when I gave them the script, they said Iriton, and it came back and I was like, you know what? That sounds pretty awesome. And so now I'm stuck I'm stuck debating myself. Like, do I want to move forward with Iriton or do I want to keep it Ireton? But I really don't care one way or the other.
Yeah.
But, basically the theme of the game is that King Zarmund's going to make 3 demands for his capital city. So he's going to say, these are my 3 demands. And whoever can meet 2 of these 3 demands first wins the game. So, we're going to have one.
Have the district with the most cards.
I think we'll probably end up
10 more science than every other player.
I guess we could have these. I think I did shuffle the deck.
Yeah. No, the science one is new from when we were last time.
And we've also had a video where we talked with you, Paul, and you gave us all kinds of insights into the creation process of the game and some of the background to the game, and you showing up at Gen Con. So we'll put a link card up above here for people who would like to go see that interview now. This video will focus primarily on how the game is played.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate that. Okay, so this deck has 15 victory conditions in it. So these 3 are different from what I had yesterday when I played. They're going to be different from the next time we play. And I think we'll go over those at the end because I don't want to have to make you remember those for the entire explanation.
Yeah, sure. Are these win conditions are for all of us to, like, we're all competing, and they change game to game or even in the middle of the game?
They just change game to game. So these will be our 3 victory conditions for this game, and whoever can manage to meet 2 of those 3 wins the game.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can do 1 and 2, 1 and 3, or 2 and 3. Now we're going to probably do the same thing here for our technologies. There's 21 technologies in this deck, and I just shuffled it. So let's pull some off of here. I'm going to pull the first one off. Use F to flip, and I think, Nick, if you haven't done this yet, we have masonry. If you hold the button, then it brings the deck, but if you just kind of quickly click,
you gotta swipe it off there.
There we go. Yeah. So we've got, oh, sorry, I just stole that from you there.
How many cards do we pull off the technology deck?
We have 5.
Okay.
There we go. And we'll go over these before we start the game as well.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we got masonry, artistry, literacy, construction, and surveying. That is amazing because that's only one in common what I had yesterday. So
nice.
This is going to be a completely different game.
That's where the freshness comes from in the game. The replayability comes from the technologies mostly.
Right, and see, because even if you happen to have the same 3 victory conditions, which is probably never going to happen, but you could have the same 3 victory conditions, but have new techs out there, and the game completely changes. Maybe last game with those techs, 2 and 3 were the easiest, but maybe with these techs, 1 and 3 is the easiest, or 1 and 2. So
very nice.
It's going to be completely different every time.
Would the text be sort of like the actions that we're choosing to take each round?
They won't be. I'll go over those in just a second. So we're just kind of randomizing the board now so that we have something in there so that I can refer to it. But I'm going to randomize this as well. These are the palace rewards for our game, and these are also randomized each time. Oh, wow. Okay, that's an interesting palace. Not a particularly strong one, but that's all that goes into every game is, you know, sometimes you have a strong palace and you can rely on upgrading it to get you there, but sometimes you can't. But going into the game, we'll go into that a little bit later, but going into, I usually try to cover the basics of the game first. So what I have 5 things that I like to go over. These dice right here, these are the resource dice. And you'll see on these dice, if I can roll them properly, you'll see, and I didn't roll any production, but you'll see on these dice, there's 2 different resources. There's hammers, which represent production, and there's science, which represents, or there's slashes that represent science. So those are the only 2 resources you're going to be collecting in this game. Production is represented by these little chips here with the hammers.
Yep.
You have a stack over here. And then science is going to be represented by you moving your little cube up this science track here. So you're putting your cube on the number that of the science amount of science you have. So the production is what kind of allows you to get the buildings that are going to be out here in the center of the table.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I'm going to pull a few off just to show people. There's going to be 3 different colors. There's going to be green, yellow, and purple, and they all increase different attributes of your city. So green increases your population, yellow increases your gold, and purple increases your culture. So this is the entire deck right here is just a deck of buildings. So the production is what you use to get the buildings, and the science over here is what you use to get the technologies that we drew for our game. So you know what the buildings are, you know what the texts are. Let's go into, you know what the victory conditions are. Those are the Zarmund's demands cards, the orange cards.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing that we need to go over is your little planning book. So your little planning book is like your little strategy, your little strategy books where you're gonna not only keep track of like your city stats up in the top row, but you use the bottom 2 rows to figure out what your action is going to be for that turn. So the way that this game works is every round works the exact same way. There's only 3 steps to a round, and every round has these exact same 3 steps. Somebody's going to roll these dice is number 1.
Okay.
So we have now completed step number 1 of the round. Now, depending on what was rolled, and actually I'm going to kind of manipulate this outcome so that I can get a better example.
All in the name of good teaching.
Right, there we go. Okay, we got a good one here. Actually, I'm going to get rid of that.
Like, what if you roll all blanks?
Then there's no resources available that round.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay.
So
there was a flood, washed everything away.
So this is a very good example here. So step 1 of the round is now done. Somebody rolled the dice, and honestly, it doesn't even matter because in this game, everybody has access to the rolls. So it's not like whoever rolls the best in the game is going to have a severe advantage. So
right.
I rolled these dice, but literally everybody around the table can take these, not just me. So this is the point when I would put up the veils, and now you can only see your own book. And now we're all going to choose one of 3 actions, and you do that in secret and nobody else can see it. After we've all agreed that we're ready, I'm going to hit the button and we're going to see what everyone chose. And then we're going to resolve our action. So that's the 3rd step of the round. So it goes roll the dice, everyone chooses 1 action, and then we all reveal and then resolve the action. Okay. So, and then I would just pass the dice off to the next player, and then they would roll. Honestly, you don't have to pass the dice, but everybody likes to roll dice. So,
yes.
So we do. So that's the way that every round works. Now we're going to go into what are the 3 actions that you can actually do in step 2 of the round after the dice are rolled. So the first thing that you can do is you can take the resources that were rolled on the dice. This turn, it happened to be 3 production and 2 science. So in order to take that action, I'm actually going to type, as long as the veil's not up, I think I can type in your books. So
yeah,
I'm actually going to take control of Nathan's here for a sec. And if you wanted to take resources as your action this round, you would take 3 production and 2 science. And that's for everybody around the table. So if everyone chooses to take resources this turn, everyone's getting 3 production and 2 science.
Okay.
Okay.
And so to resolve that action, you would just take 3 of these chips and you would move your little cube up 2 on the science thing.
Now, in your experience, do you find that right from the outset, everybody picks the same strategies, or is there a lot of variability in how people go about doing this?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of variability. I think we actually had with my main Gempire group, like a couple months ago, we had a game where everyone actually met 2 victory conditions on the same turn, but all 3 combinations of 2 victory conditions were met. So I think I got like 2 and 3. One of my friends got 1 and 3, and one of my friends got 1 and 2. So, but we all got it on the same turn. And in that case, whoever has the most gems at the end of the game is that's the tiebreaker. But that was an incredible game just because we all took a completely different path to win the game, and we all had completely different techs that we had discovered, and all had completely different like palace levels. And I think one of us had a second row and the other people didn't. So like it was very, very different. It was actually really interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed that, Paul. What you took the white cube and put it on the 2 space. What was that about?
So that was if you took these 2 science dice as part of the resource, that just indicates where you're
right. I'm using your book, so I should have given you the production.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about.
I'm used to dragging it over here.
It should be the red one that goes on 2.
Right, so it should be the red one. I was doing it for myself.
Oh yes, okay.
I shouldn't have. I should have remembered that I was using your book. But yeah, you're correct.
No, that just I just wanted clarification on that.
So yeah, that's how you would resolve that action. Now I will say, starting out, everybody has a max capacity of 5 of these, so you can't ever get. So you can't hold more than 5 production tokens. So if you were to have 3 at the beginning of this turn, and this was to be rolled, and you were to try to take 3 production and 2 science, you could actually only take two coins because you would max out at 5.
No, okay.
Okay.
So that's everybody. Everybody starts out at a max of 5 at the beginning of the game.
Okay.
So that's how you take the first choice, which is take resources. That's how you do that. Now we're going to move on to the next action that you can do. Your next choice is to bid on the buildings that are out here. And actually, I'm going to put these back because it's not a very good
example.
It's not a very good example. So I'm going to shuffle the deck a few times. There's a button up here that says refresh display. And if we click that, it just
nice.
Does it automatically. Nice.
Perfect.
So that one's actually supposed to be flipped over because you're actually supposed to be able to see what's coming up.
Gotcha. Okay, a little prelude. If
right,
yeah,
you can make decisions based. You can make decisions based on that sometimes, definitely. And then this little clear fields button, Nathan, if you click that, it just gets rid of everything in these 2 rows, so you don't have to go and backspace your your last action.
Nice.
So So the second thing that you can do is if you go into this turn with production, like let's say you had like 5. You can use this to bid on the buildings that are out there. So you can bid on 1 building, you can bid on multiple buildings, you can bid on as many as you want. You can't bid a total of the amount that you have. So you couldn't go like 2, 2, 2 because you only have 5. And that would be 6.
Yeah.
So, but you don't have to bid it all if you don't want to. You can bid it all if you want to. But that number in the bottom right corner is the minimum that you have to bid for that building. So that's going to range from 1 to 4, and 1 is going to be the most common. 4 is going to be the rarest.
That's a good indicator of how good that item is. And is that what expands our ability? So that there might be a card in here that allows us to have more than 5 technology chits at once?
That's actually what the population does. Is it allows you to hold more production.
Okay.
But we'll get into that in just a bit. Right now, just finishing up the bidding action. So like Nate, if you, depending on which ones you really wanted or which ones you thought other people really wanted and you wanted to kind of.
So I would just write in my bid, let's say, like, can I bid on multiple?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's turns where people win all 3 buildings.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
Oh crap.
Yeah. And so but if I don't want to bid the full amount of my production, like I can save it for a future turn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But for like B, you wouldn't be able to bid 1 because
that's right. Yeah.
Because of the 3 out there.
Yeah. So I could do 2 for C because that's the minimum bid.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. That would be a valid turn. So basically, keep in mind, all of us can only do 1 action per turn. So if you are taking the resources, you can't place a bid. And if you are bidding, you can't take the resources. So a lot of times, depending on what the resources are for that turn, you're trying to go into that turn, trying to figure out, okay, how many people want to take all those resources? And if a bunch of people want to take all those resources, you can take advantage of that and be the only one that puts a bid in for that turn, you know, and get some buildings. Or if you think a whole bunch of people are going to bid and you don't want to get in the middle of that, you can kind of hold back and take resources for that turn. And try to, you know, get ahead that way. And then next turn, you're going to have all the production. So it's definitely, it's going to be a lot of mind games that we're going to be playing with each other.
Okay.
That's what makes a good game. And,
it's so much fun.
And you've described this as friendly. That doesn't sound too friendly.
Yeah.
It's friendly in the fact that you can't just like play a card and be like, oh, Nate, your bank is gone. So
right. So you're not destroying other people's civilizations.
You're not destroying other. You're not destroying other people's cities. You can get in their way by either like getting a tech before they do, or you know, bidding on a building that they wanted and beating them out. But you know, the thing is the other person can always be 1 step ahead of you anyway. So even if you wanted to like go for one specific person and try to ruin their game, you have no idea what they're choosing to do every turn anyway. So it's going to be pretty hard to do that.
I'm sensing an expansion down the road where it becomes more competitive, and some players love that. Like I'm one where I would love to be a saboteur and you know, maybe have something where it prevents someone else from bidding that turn.
Right. Oh gosh, that would be savage.
Yeah.
Yes, it would.
So
okay, and then upgrade city is the next action.
Right, and before we go on to that, actually, I never covered ties and losses. So if you ever tie on a bid, so basically when we reveal our action, we're going to be looking around the table, see who else bid, right? See who else bid on those buildings. And everyone that you bid the most on, you're obviously going to get that building and you're going to get to place it into your city here. That's the building zone.
Okay.
And everyone so if you tie, whoever has the most science at the time gets the building. So the science for the bidding is kind of like the tiebreaker. So if you tie with me, but you have more science, you get the building. Now, if you lose on a bid, you lose 1 production per building that you lost on. So if you did the 3 on A and 2 on C, if you lost both of those bids, you would only lose 2 production because you lose 1 for losing A, you lose 1 for losing C.
Okay, so there is a little bit of punishment for unsuccessfully bidding or underbidding. Because it costs money to go to the market, and you know it takes time out of your busy schedule to do all that. That's very cool. I like that.
So because if there wasn't any risk, everybody would there would be no point in holding some back. Like you would just bid your full amount every time, because if you lost, you wouldn't lose it anyway. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
So there is a little bit of risk, but you don't lose the full amount. So it's not like it's game ending. If you lose, you're going to lose bids all the time, you know, but it's not going to end your game or anything. Let's put that back up there. So that's how the bidding works. Now, of course, like obviously when you win a building, you have to place it straight into your city. You can't like hold it in your hand or anything. That's when the building goes into your city. So that's how you do the second action, which is bid on buildings. Now, the third action, which is upgrade city, there's 2 upgrades that you can do. There's a second row and there's a palace upgrade. Now, I'm going to actually save that for last. This is how I did it at Gen Con, is I always save that for last because those involve details that we haven't even covered yet. So I always save that for last, and it always goes better that way. So I'm actually going to step right into when you win a building and you place it in your city, what do you do? So I'm actually going to use this as an example. But if you got the podium, that is a purple card that gives you 4 culture. So every time you place a building into your city, your totals of your attributes in your book are going to go up, right? So in your book, this is kind of where you keep track of your totals. So if you play the podium in your city, you're going to type a 4 into your culture space in your book here. So basically, as you get more and more buildings, like let's say you get the stables, and you're obviously going to type a 10 into your population, and you're just going to keep doing that, right? So you're just going to keep increasing your attributes, keeping track of your stats. There's some that depend on other things. So like, I know we've been pulling a lot of cards off here. There's a lot that just have numbers, and there's some that have like words on them like this. So this racetrack says it's worth 4 culture plus another 1 culture per gold building to the right of it. So obviously right now we don't have any gold buildings to the right of it. But if we did, let's try to find a gold building here.
So the placement within your building zone will matter then in terms
Absolutely.
of...
Absolutely.
Does it have to be linear, or can you go above and below as well?
So that's a good question. Everybody starts out with 1 row. So your first building goes into your city, right? Like the podium. First building goes into your city. Every building after that has to go immediately to the left or right of that building, of the buildings that you already have. So you can place it here, or you can place it here. So let's just do there. You get your next building, you have to place it here, or you have to place it here.
Gotcha.
So let's go there. Now that racetrack is worth 4 right now because there's no gold buildings to the right. But later on in the game, if you start building gold buildings to the right, like right here, that's to the right of it. It just has to be anywhere to the right of it. It doesn't have to be like immediately to the right of it. But that would increase the racetrack by 1. And then if you place another gold building, it would increase it more. So like you can definitely
stack your...
You can definitely, get some really good combos going.
Nice. And is there any limit to the length of row?
Yes, I was actually just about to go over that. Actually, I'm going to go over the gems first, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yes, please. I've been wondering about those. I've been just trying to hold off asking because I know you're going to tell us.
I know. So yeah, I usually go over the gems first, and then I go over the building, and then I'll go over like more details on the building placement later. So I'm going to hit the gems first. So as I said earlier, you're going to continue to increase your attributes over here and continue to add them up. So you would have 4 gold from your mill, and you would have, it looks like right now you would have 9 culture because that racetrack is now worth 5.
Yep.
But every time you reach or surpass a multiple of 10, okay, Nick.
just setting it up for when you get to that.
Nick
just
knows where you're
me.
going next.
So these are not in play right now.
This is foreshadowing for something coming later. Stay tuned.
Ignore the green hand, please.
But every time you reach or surpass a multiple of 10 in any of these attributes, you get a gem of that color. So if you reach 10 in population, you get your first one. Once you reach at least 20, you get your second one. Once you reach at least 30, you get your third one. So you start stacking these pretty high sometimes. I think one of the players a couple games ago had like 11 green gems, I think, at one point.
Wow.
So that's how you get the gems. And then we're going to go over what each of the gems does, because they each give you their own little strategic benefit. So population is the green gem. And I think we said this earlier, for every green gem that you have, your capacity for production ships goes up 1. So if you have like 3 of these, you can now hold 8 production. Okay, so that's the strategic benefit of green, is that it gives you a little bit more bidding power, a little bit more flexibility in the bidding wars. And also it does something, it also allows you to upgrade your palace higher, which this is kind of why I saved palace for last, but we'll discuss that later. Now gold is useful in the fact that for every gold gem that you have, when you take resources as your action, you can switch 1 production to a science or 1 science to a production. So if you were to take resources this turn and you had 1 gold gem, you could take 2 production and 3 science if you wanted to, or you could take 4 production and 1 science if you wanted to. Now, so it kind of allows you to allocate your resources a little bit better. Now, the awesome thing about gold is once you start stacking it really high, like let's say you had 5, and like this was rolled, so 2 science was rolled, you have 3 of these gold gems. You have 3 more gold gems than the amount of resources that were even rolled. So with these 3, you can create whatever you want. So you could honestly take 5 production this turn if you wanted to, because these 2 you can do whatever you want with the resources, and then these 3 create whatever you want. So you could take 5. You're basically going to get 5 of whatever you want this turn if that was rolled. So you could take 5 production, 0 science. You could take 3 production, 2 science. You could take 5 science and 0 production.
Gotcha.
It's really whatever.
So
you want.
They had flexibility.
Yeah, the 2 gold matches up with the 2 science there, and then the remaining 3 you can create whatever
Correct.
you like. Okay,
Right.
Correct.
It's almost like this.
So regardless of if you wanted to switch those science with these 2 can't create anything because
yes,
they
but you
match
can
up.
exchange. You can switch with them.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know it says switch/create on the book. The create comes in when you have more gold gems than the amount that were rolled.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the very nice thing about golds. And I'm just gonna highlight these, put them all back. And actually, you have to be very careful about putting back because like gold gems will go in the green stack.
Yeah.
Appear as the green gems, so you can get lost gems that way. But so you know what green does, you know what population does, and you know what gold does. So we're going to go over culture last.
Oh, and just before we move away from the cards, I noticed on the bottom left there's like gems or a little science
that is palace level stuff.
That's palace level stuff.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
That is palace upgrade stuff. So
that's next tier thinking.
That is what we're going to hit on. We're going to do gems. We're going to finish the gems, and then we're going to go into districts and building placement in your city. And then we're going to go into city upgrades and science.
Right. Oh, and actually one other question came to mind about win conditions. So let's say I have at least 10 more science than every other player. Do I take that card and it's mine permanently, or can someone then get ahead of me by 10 and then steal that card from me?
Someone can always, yeah. So you never actually take the demands cards. Okay. Technically, like everybody could meet number 3.
Gotcha.
Like everybody could actually be meeting 3 at the same time. This is an interesting game because there's only 3 cards in the deck that only one person can have at a time, and we have 2 of them in this game. Wow. So that's our number 1 and 2. So this is going to be a pretty interesting game. Normally, you have a bunch that like all 3 people can meet, and it doesn't matter if anybody else has met it, you can still get it. But this game is going to be pretty interesting. Now, we needed to go over the purples, didn't we? Yeah. So the culture gems. When you get a culture gem, you have to immediately make a choice with that gem. So you're either going to put it on number 1, 2, or 3, and those are going to correspond to the victory conditions that we have for our game. So you'll see the orange cards, the demands, they have a culture bonus in the bottom. So going over each one, let's start with number 1. It says have the district with the most cards at the minimum of 5 cards. Well, for every purple that you put on number 1 this game on your flag, it's going to add an artificial point to your largest district. So if your largest district is 6 cards, but you have 2 purples on number 1, 2 purple gems on number 1, it actually acts like an 8. For number 2, have at least 10 more science than every other player with a minimum of 40 science. For every purple you have on number 2, it's like an artificial 5 to your science total. So it doesn't actually give you 5 science, but it acts as an additional 5 points toward that victory condition. Like
it just applies towards victory conditions, nothing.
Right. Yeah. So if you had like 30 science, but you had like 3 purples on number 2, it would actually act like a 45.
Oh, wow. So these gems are becoming much more valuable as you explain more rules.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, and also the purples are weird because the purples, if you place them on things that you ended up not getting close to meeting, the purples actually can end up like you'll get to the end of a game and realize you played the purples on like completely wrong number, like on the numbers that you should not have played them on. And if you would have played them on a different number, you probably would have won 3 turns ago and stuff like that. So the purples are definitely, they can be very powerful, but they're also the one that you have to make the biggest decisions with. But for number 3, have more population, gold, and culture in your second row than in your first. We're going to go over second row in just a bit. But for this game, every purple on number 3 gives you 5 kind of like fake usable points to add to your 3 attributes to make that condition true. So if I was like, okay, if I only had like 3 more green on the top, I would have that victory condition. Well, if you had one purple gem on number 3, you have
for 5.
Right. And you can split those 5 points up between the 3 attributes however you want. So if you needed to add like 3 to green and you needed to add 2 to gold in order to make that happen, then you can do that.
Excellent. Okay.
But so like obviously if you have 2 purples on number 3, you're gonna have 10 points that you can use to do that. If you have, if you have 3, you have 15. So
when you say district, do you mean one line?
So that's actually what we're going to go into right now. That's a really good segue.
Excellent.
So
totally unplanned.
Yeah, you guys are right on it. So we're going to start with the stables. So the first card that you get, Nate, is your stables. You're going to place it in your city. Yep. Now a district is defined as an adjacent group of cards of the same color in the same row. So right now you started your population district. It's only one card, but it's still a district. Now, if you win the cottage, you place it next to it. You still only have one district because they're adjacent and they're the same color. Okay. So now you can make this district however big you want, and there's no limit to how big you can make a district. You can make it 20 cards if you want to. But let's say you get like the podium and you place it in there. Well, now you've started your second district. You started your culture district now. Now, every row in your city only has room for 3 districts. So if you get another purple card, you're probably going to want to place it over here, because if you place it over here, well, now you've created your 3rd district now, and now you can literally only play purples from that point on.
Yeah.
Right.
So now again, you can, if you want to go for population and culture for the rest of the game and you think that's going to get you there, then by all means make these as big as you want. There's no limit. But if you want to eventually start going for gold, which you probably will at one point, depending on the victory conditions and whether you want that benefit from the golds, you're going to have to make a decision. So you're going to have to make the decision of, am I okay putting my gold building here and not being able to play any more green in this row? Or am I okay putting my gold here and not being able to place any more culture in this row? But it's completely up to you when you want to do that. You don't ever have to get your first gold building if you don't want to. But if you do want to get a gold building and you have to make that decision, you're going to have to end up cutting off one of those other colors. So that's kind of a decision that you have to make at the beginning of the game, is what colors am I going to go for at the beginning, and which color am I kind of okay with kind of delaying it, right? And kind of going for later in the game.
I like how many decisions you give players and how many interactions there are. And even though we're playing our own tableau, there's just a lot of strategic choice in the game.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, and even more decisions will come in when we start getting into those symbols that you mentioned earlier in the corners for the palace upgrades. So I like this game. It's very simple in the fact that you only have 3 actions that you can do, right? It's not like you have a whole list of things that you can do in a turn. Like the actions themselves and the choices are very simple, but there's a million different reasons why you would choose to take resources or bid on buildings or upgrade your city. There's a million different reasons. So, it kind of keeps it simple, but it also keeps it fresh because there's so many decisions. There's so many reasons why you would make a decision.
That's great. Yeah.
So
it's almost like 5D chess, though, where you can look back at a previous decision and realize that you should have taken a different path, but it's too late.
Definitely. Somebody did that yesterday. There was a technology that they said, gosh, I wish I would have gotten that technology instead of this other one. But yeah, it's you almost always, you just kind of try to build your best strategy. And it's just kind of a game where you get to the end and you just kind of shake hands with the winner and be like, well done. You did better than me. But depending on where you put this gold, like let's say we put it here, we've basically cut off our purples for that row. So we can't place any more purples in our city at that point, unless we get a second row. And that's going to segue us back into our upgrade city action, our number 3. So third action that you can take is to upgrade your city. And we're going to go over the second row and the palace upgrade. So the first thing that you can do, the first upgrade that you can do is a second row. And to take that action, you're just going to type, if I can type, You're just going to type second row into that space right there on the right. Now a second row costs 5 production, and it's going to cost that turn. So you spend your 5 production, you get a second row token, just lay it off to the side over here in the second row. And now from that point on, any buildings that you get that you win in the bidding wars, you can now place them up here. So let's say you got the Hall of the Dead. Now you can place it up here now. You can also continue to place them in the bottom row as well. So once you get your second row, you can still build your first row out. Now, the way that the second row works is the first card that you put in the second row can go anywhere. So you can put it here, you can put it here, you can put it in the middle, you can put it anywhere. But after you place it down, then you have to start building out from it just like you did in the first row. So you would have to place your next card of the second row over either to the left or to the right of it. Now, the other rule about second row is you can't expand it past the edge of your first row. But you are allowed to build out your first row to make it bigger so that you can build out your second row. So, so you could, if you had this and you wanted to place a card over here, you could put the guardhouse over here, expand your green district, and then put that one over there. That would be allowed.
Yeah.
Now, what would happen if in this situation you didn't have a second row and you won a purple card, but you're not able to place it?
So everyone does have one spot off to the side that I call a blueprint. You can win a card, and you don't have to be in this situation to do this, by the way. People do this with plenty of cards that they just don't want to place at the time. But you turn it off to the side, or you turn it to the side and place it off to the side of your city, and that's kind of like a blueprinted card. And now you can place that into your city later on in the game, but it won't add to your attribute until you actually place it in your city.
Okay. Now, and if I were to get another purple one now with that already in place, what happens?
In that case, I would just say you have to discard the card.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
sounds like it doesn't come up that often.
It doesn't come up that often. I mean, you're gonna notice. I mean, if you don't notice, I would say if you win the card, you have to discard it, and if you lose the bid, obviously it's not an issue. Because somebody else won it, but. I would definitely say, yeah, if you win the bid on a card that you literally can't place into your city, I would just say discard it. So you just put it like over here. You maybe put it face down.
Yeah, that's good. So you gotta manage your city well, or you're gonna waste resources.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I saw some people at Gen Con who used their 3 districts up really quick in the bottom row, and then they were stuck. They had to build a second row.
Yeah,
but the second row also comes in handy because it makes you less predictable on your bids. So like, if you're doing this and I'm looking at your city and there's some gold cards out there, I'm kind of thinking, well, I don't think Nate wants gold yet. Like if you don't have your second row and you only have one row, I'm able to kind of predict what you're thinking based on, I don't think you're ready to cut off one of your districts yet. So I don't think you're going to go for gold. And that gives me a little bit of information on how much I would have to bid if I wanted the gold cards. So, so second row gives you a little bit more of that unpredictability. Now, if you have the second row, well, now I'm like, well, I can't necessarily say that anymore, because now if you win a gold card, you can just place it up here and you don't have to cut off anything. So so second row is definitely, it's useful. Number one, there's certain victory conditions that it's almost impossible to get without a second row. Like number 3, this game is pretty much impossible to get without a second row. Of course, you don't have to go for number 3, but yeah, second row comes in handy a lot. And actually in this game, we actually have a tech that gives you a second row for free, which is masonry, but we're going to go over that later.
Yep.
So that is second row. We're going to go over palace upgrades now. I probably should have just left these down here.
I was wondering, but
what's the ideal player count for this game, and what are the limits on minimum, maximum?
So it plays 3 to 5 players. I personally have a soft spot for 5 players because it's got a lot of chaos and a lot of bidding wars and a lot of mind games. But I played a 3-player game yesterday, and it was still really, really fun. So I would say 4 to 5 players is the optimal. 3 players is slightly less engaging, but it's definitely still worth playing with 3 players.
Right. So it's a game where it becomes more interesting when there's multiple people bidding and some people losing the bids. And
yeah, definitely. So I'm actually going to put this one back too. Okay, so palace upgrades. And actually, for a better example, actually, I'm going to lay this one in number 1. Okay, so for palace upgrades, these are also randomized every game. So the palace could start out being very strong, it could start out being very weak, or not really start out, but it could be very weak for that game. It could be very strong. So these little tokens tell you what you're going to receive as a reward for upgrading your palace. So everyone starts with a level 0 palace. And to upgrade it to level 1, it costs 5 production. Upgrading to level 2 costs 6 production. Upgrading to level 7 costs, or upgrading to level 3 costs 7 production, and so on. So I'm going to make that connection back to the population gems, where if you don't have any population gems, the highest you can get is level 1. If you want to get higher, you're obviously going to have more population gems so that you can hold more production, because you can't build a level 3 palace with 7 production if you can only hold 5.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Now I will say you can skip levels on your palace. So you can go straight from your current level 0 straight to level 3 if you wanted to for 7 production. And then you could go straight to level 5 for another 9 production. But every time you upgrade your city, you're going to get the reward that you upgraded to and everything below it. So if you upgraded to level 3, this how you would take the action is you would just type palace 3 into your book in the same spot that you would that you type second row. That's kind of your city upgrade spot. So you type in what level you're upgrading to, and so then you would spend your 7 production, and you would get this reward, you would get this reward, and you would get this reward, regardless of what they are. This time, in this example, we have 2 palace diamonds, a blank, and 2 diamonds per symbol. We're going to go over all of these. So the number 1, you would get 2 of these little diamonds here. Now, your first diamond of the game, you place on any building in your city. So I'm just going to do the stables. Any building in your city. Now, every diamond that you place in the game after that has to be connected to that one in some way. So either left, right, above, or below that one. So depending on where you start this, you're going to be building off of this for the rest of the game.
Okay.
So stables, and then I might go keep. Now, every card that you place a diamond onto that has that diamond symbol in the bottom left corner is going to be doubled for the rest of the game. So if it has at least 1 diamond symbol, you'll see the racetrack over here actually has 2. But if it has at least 1 diamond symbol and you get a diamond on it, that card is doubled for the rest of the game. So Nate, you would get an additional 10 population. And you
is
would
that
get
an instant upgrade?
That is instant, yes. So
and
like
1 time.
Not 1 time. You can upgrade your palace as many times as you want throughout the game.
Oh, okay.
So, and then you would also get an additional 8 culture.
So this would be a 33 population as it stands.
Yep, 20 and then 13. Yep, that would be 33. And then it looks like your culture would be 5 plus 9 is 14 plus 4 is 18 plus 16 is 34. 18 plus 16.
Yep.
See, this to me seems like actually good for kids to be doing even at a young age, like down to like 6, 7, 8 years old.
It's just a lot for them to keep track of. I think that's the big thing is it's just a lot for
There's
them.
There's a lot going on for sure.
Right. But so that would be a very good way to play that. Now, for cards that have 2 diamond symbols like the racetrack, if you get 2 diamonds on a card with 2 diamond symbols, it's tripled for the rest of the game. Now, those are definitely more rare than the ones with the single diamonds. But the only rule about the cards with 2 diamonds is you can't put 2 diamonds on the same card in the same upgrade. So if you did want to get a second diamond on the racetrack, you'd have to upgrade your palace again. So all of your diamonds from a single upgrade have to go on different buildings. You can't put you can't put 2 on the same. Yeah.
Okay.
So like, if you did want to triple that racetrack, then going here would probably not be the best option.
Yeah.
You'd probably want to do this so that when you upgrade it again, like let's say you went from level 3 to level 5, well, now you would get all of those rewards again. So now for upgrading to level 5, you would get 3 diamonds. So now you could place a second one onto the racetrack.
Yeah.
you could put one onto the podium, and then you could put your third one on, and you could reach the stables.
There's some planning on that front as
Right.
well.
There's some planning on where you're putting your diamond buildings. But that's also, you know, if you head into a game where there's just not a whole lot of diamonds available, then diamond symbols aren't really worth a whole lot to you.
I find your cards are like onions, where at first blush that doesn't seem like there's too much there, but it keeps being multiple layers underneath that add
That's
to.
a good analogy, actually. I didn't even think about that. That's
Now, what about the beaker there on 3?
So that is like our you'll notice that some of the building cards have little science symbols in the bottom.
Yes.
And there's going to be there's the exact same amount of science symbols on the cards as diamond symbols, if you were wondering.
Okay.
And then some cards, like the farm and the dairy farm up there on A and C, don't have any symbols. But number 3, that reward would give you 2 science per science symbol in your city. So you would just count the amount of science you have in your city, and it looks like you have 4. So you would get 8. You would just immediately get 8 science for that reward.
Okay, that makes sense.
And yeah, that's how you do the palace. Pretty straightforward. I think we're going to just redraw these for our game, but since I kind of manipulated them to get that example. But last thing that we have to do is the science. Well, we'll draw these last. Last thing we have to do is the science. So of course, as you play the game and you're taking resources, you're moving your little cube up the science track, right? Now, in the third step of the turn, after we all reveal what we did and we're all resolving our action, that's when you can choose to discover technology. So like, let's say I had 23 science. I could use one of my little cubes from the side here. Actually, I'm going to use Nate's because that's what I've been doing this entire time. So I'm going to stay consistent. So Nate, you have 23 science.
Okay.
So it looks like you'll see the prices of the science on the left. The prices on the left are always the cheapest, the little green numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we go. So at the end of the turn, when we've all revealed and we're all resolving our action, that's when you can choose to discover technology. And you having 23, it looks like you have enough to either discover masonry, construction, or surveying. So depending on which one you wanted, you take your little cube, and let's say you wanted construction. You would just put it on there. And now you've claimed it for 22. And the next person who would want to get construction would have to spend 30 on it. Now, I don't want to say the word spend because it's a little misleading. A lot of people like to put their cube up here so they can see how much they used on it. But your cube will actually not go down after you discover technology, because this is just kind of like your overall cumulative technological advancement throughout the game. So, and if this brought your cube down just for discovering technology, you would never discover technology, especially in a game like this where number two has the victory condition of having 10 more science than everyone else.
Well, and discovering something doesn't make you lose knowledge too. So
right.
It wouldn't make sense either.
That's actually exactly how I usually explain it to people. So I'm glad that you said that. I know I'm doing a lot of talking here. So,
well, that's why we're here. We want to learn how to play your game. So that's great. We appreciate it.
But yeah, so
is that an action when you discover, like, let's say I get a card and I'm now up to 23 science. Do I have to spend an action of some sort, or can I?
That is
can I discover masonry and
absolutely
construction and surveying all in the same turn?
Well, if you did, you would have to have a lot more science, because the science that you used for construction, you can't use for anything else. So if you wanted masonry, you'd have to be at 31, because you'd have already used 22 of your science for construction, and you need 9 more for masonry. So like if you wanted, if you wanted artistry and literacy, you'd have to have 55.
Yeah, but could I do that the next turn? Like just claim one every turn? Yeah.
I mean, like you could save up a ton of science and not discover anything. You could discover 3 techs on the same turn if you wanted to. Now, I don't know why you would do that, because a lot of them, it's better to have the sooner you have it, the better, so you can use it for more of the game.
So let's say I'm at 23, here, and I decide to get construction as we've decided. So
Sure.
the next turn, do I have 23 again, or do I just have one? And how do I track?
You only have, so for now you only have one spendable science, and that's why I gave the little text input fields in your book here.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's where you track that. Okay.
You know, you don't have to keep track of it. A lot of people have the preference of keeping track of how much spendable science they have.
Mhm.
And in that case, yeah, you could just keep track of how much spendable science you have in that little box.
Okay.
So it's like you have scientists and you've sent out 23 scientists to figure out construction.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But then later, let's say you want to upgrade to artistry. Can you get rid of construction and
You
just
cannot.
no? Okay.
No. Yeah. You
can't forget it and
Right.
come back later.
Can't send them out.
So that's one of the big decisions is, gosh, like, do I get this cheaper tech right now because it would be useful to have right now, or do I hold off and try to get a more expensive one? But then you have to take into account how long is it going to take you to get there.
Mhm.
So that's one of the big decisions in science. Yeah, is actually this one should go back down here because this is one of your little discovery cubes. But
the longer you hold off,
in
the more
science is like,
expensive it
okay,
gets.
when I get 9 science, am I going to want that second row? Like, am I going to want to get masonry, or am I going to want to wait and get something else? Like, you know, there's some really good techs out there. So it's all up to you on what your personal strategy is going in. But you know, and then sometimes your strategy, like you said, changes in the course of the game. If you were going for literacy, but somebody got there before you and took the 25, now is it worth it? Like, do you find it worth it to spend 31 on literacy?
Yeah.
Or at that point, are you just going to cut your losses and be like, okay, then fine, I'm just going to get construction, or, you know, or surveying. So yeah, there's a lot of decisions with that. And I believe, one more rule. So Nate, let's say you got construction.
Yep.
So for the remainder of that turn, before we start the next round, anybody else who has at least 22 spendable science can also get construction for 22. So this is kind of like you're calling, okay, I'm getting construction. If anybody else wants construction, you have to get it now. So
okay.
And so then I would be like, yeah, okay, fine, I'm going to get it too. But if we all choose not to get it, then, you know, then we'd have to spend 30 on it later.
Huh. So tell me about what are these hybrid cards all about?
So when you win a hybrid card on a bid, you have to choose, basically, you don't get both of them, you have to choose one or the other. So depending on which one you want to use, you have to choose at the time that you place it into your city, which attribute you want to use it for. So if you want to use it for gold and get the 7 gold on the card here, you're going to play it into your city such that the gold half is facing forward.
Okay.
And if you want to place it as a green card and get the 4 population, then you place it like that so that the green half is pointing forward. So depending on which way you play it, and actually, you know, this comes into effect like when you're deciding. We discussed those districts. So a lot of times, you know, you're thinking, well, why would I ever play this as a green card if I'm only getting 4 population versus if I'm getting 7 gold if I place it as a gold card? Well, a lot of times it's you might have buildings that stack off of green cards, or you might have a green district that you're trying to make really big for some reason, or
it's all about the combos,
right? So so you don't always just play it, you know, you don't always just place it on the side that's the most every time. You will find yourself placing it as the other color a lot of times. But after you place it in your city on the color that you want, you can't change it for the rest of the game.
Oh, yes, that makes sense. Just like you can't move buildings that have already been built. You know, you can't put them on a truck and move them around.
Right. And then that blueprint, spot that we discussed, people a lot of times use these on their blueprint because they're not really sure which color they'd like to play it as at the time. So they'll wait until they have a little bit more information and see how their city's kind of panning out. And then later they'll be like, okay, yeah, I realize now this is definitely better to play as a gold card.
Yes. Yeah,
So
no, that's great. And so there's hybrids of all, like there's purple and green and
yep.
yellow and
Yeah.
purple and
There's a different combination, or there's the exact same amount of every hybrid.
yes.
So, and there's another, there's a purple green. Yeah,
Oh,
so
the inn looks interesting too. Population per building in the second row.
right. So that is any building in the second row.
Wow.
Not just, not just green buildings, not just a certain color. And if you look over on the text, actually, there's a tech that combos very, very nicely with that one. That's called surveying.
Yep.
Every card in the second row counts as double the amount of buildings.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and then you have cards like this town hall.
Yeah, I was reading that one actually as well.
Very rarely, yeah, you'll have cards that say they're worth a different amount of buildings. So the default amount of every card is just that it's worth one building.
Yeah.
But you will have rare
that's
occasions like this town hall where it's actually worth more than one building. Now, if you place this as like, let's say you place this as a purple card,
yeah,
as a culture building. So this would be worth 3 culture buildings. Now it doesn't actually give you 3 culture, but it's worth 3 culture buildings when you combine it with other cards, like this market is worth 2 gold per gold building. So if this was 3 gold buildings, that would make the market go up by 6.
Wow.
And
so if you had the town square in the second hall, sorry, in the second row, and then you had the inn here.
Yeah, and you would have to play it like
yes, you have to play it like
right.
that, but that's a pretty powerful
right. And then if you
combo.
had surveying, now that town square is now worth 6 buildings.
Wow.
And so now that inn is now worth 12 population.
Wow.
And it also has that diamond symbol in the corner, and you could place a diamond on it and double it, and now it becomes 20.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. So lots of combos.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen at Gen Con, I actually got a single card up to 75 points.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
But surprisingly enough, I didn't win because the one of the victory conditions was one of your attributes cannot be greater than the other 2 combined. And so that one made that one actually made my culture so high that my population and my goal didn't add up to what my culture was anymore. So while it did help in the fact that it got me a bunch of purple gems, it put me basically out of contention for that victory condition.
Wow.
So
that's funny.
Yeah, there's just a lot of cool little situational things.
Now, is the game won as soon as you hit the 2 conditions? It's game, like there's no, the other players get one more turn or anything like that. It's just as soon as you hit them.
Yeah. So basically, when everybody's resolving their action at the end of the round, so we've all revealed what we chose to do, and we're all resolving our actions. So like we're either getting our resources, or we're getting some buildings and getting gems, or we're discovering texts or something like that.
Yeah.
If you can say in that part of the turn, if you can say, I think I've won, look, I have number 1 and I have number 3, and you can prove it to the group, then that's when you win.
Oh, interesting.
And actually, so there are certain circumstances where people can resolve their action in a way that keeps you from winning. So if you say like, well, look, I have number 1 and I have number 3, because look, I have number 1 because I have the biggest district of anybody around the table, but somebody else is like, wait, I got 2 purples this round. I got 2 purple gems.
Oh,
so to keep you from winning, I'm going to place those purples on number 1. They can do that, and that does happen sometimes, and that's just.
So as far as declaring when you think you've won, can you wait until after they've placed their purple gems? Or
no, they're always going to get the opportunity to resolve their action.
To do their final result. Okay.
Right, because until the next round starts, none of your moves are really finalized. So if you're like, okay, yeah, I'm getting literacy, and then somebody else is like, well, then I'm getting construction. You can choose to say, okay, well, fine. I guess if you're getting construction, then I'm going to take mine off of literacy and get construction, because the moves aren't technically finalized until the next round.
Oh, I see. Okay, so, interesting. So you can place the moves, but they're all tentative. They're not locked in until
everyone
agrees. Interesting. Okay. So that, I think that covers all the cards then, and all the combinations. So that's good.
So that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else left to go over.
Yeah, thanks so much for running us through the game. And if people out there are enjoying this and appreciate learning from the designer, then please like and subscribe and support the game. Of course, it'll be on Kickstarter, and there'll be physical copies of it out shortly. So thanks so much, Paul. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.